Welcome to this emergency edition of the Ipsos Politics Talk podcast. My name is Keiran.pedley. Well, every month we have our Ipsos Political Monitor, which is featured in the Evening Standard. This month is no exception, but there's been quite the stir about our results today. And to go over some of that, I'm joined by my colleagues, as ever, Cameron.garrett and holly.day. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Keiran.
Hey, Keiran.
So I think, guys, at some point today, we were actually officially trending on Twitter. It's only taken 5 years to get to that stage. So,
Congratulations, knew you could make it.
Exactly. Let's, who knows what the next 5 years will bring. But that's obviously a sign of the results capturing quite a lot of attention. So, Holly, do you want to take us through what the results said and why is it so important?
Yeah, happy to. We've gone viral. It's excellent news and many more to come, hopefully, over the coming year, which will keep us all very busy. As you said, our latest political monitor came out this morning. So our monthly voting intention tracker that we do every single month. And we've got Labour up on 47%, so it's down 2 points from last month. And we've got the Conservatives on 20%, which interestingly is down 7 points on last month. And the crucial thing here is that it's the lowest ever recorded Conservative vote share that we've ever seen at Ipsos, which we started in 1978. So a pretty historic data point that we've hit upon this morning, which is worth just taking in for a moment, because I feel like on our last few podcasts, we've talked about historic trends, historic data points, kind of groundbreaking swings. It's becoming a bit of an occurrence, and I think that context is what is quite interesting at the moment. I mean, just looking back at the past few weeks, we've had record-breaking by-election losses in Kingswood, in Wellingborough, safe Conservative seats that have followed the trend of comfortably flipping over to the Labour Party over Sunak's tenure. And I think looking forward over the next couple of days, we've obviously got the spring budget coming up as well. So the Chancellor's got to be sat there thinking, well, what can I possibly give away to stem the tide and try and turn things around? Is that even possible? Is that going to worsen things if tax cuts don't land, or if public expenditure for public services doesn't meet the expectations of people that are wanting additional funding into these vital services? And I think when we've been talking over the past couple of years, actually, about the likes of Liz Truss's poll ratings, which consistently were kind of off the charts, and we were having to make new scales on charts for. And that wasn't that long ago. She was breaking all of the records. Seems like Rishi Sunak's given her a bit of a run for money, don't you think, Cameron?
Yeah, Holly, I've been digging through the Ipsos archive whilst we've all been getting excited about the voting intention. I've been looking also at Sunak's latest satisfaction ratings. So our latest poll out had him 19% satisfied with him, 73% dissatisfied, which gives him a net satisfaction of -54. This is the lowest rating he's received from Ipsos as Prime Minister, and it's the lowest score Prime Minister has received from us in nearly 30 odd years. He's entered a club I've coined the Ipsos sub -50 club, as if he's on Strava. And the only other PMs who have got a worse rating than him are Major in the mid-90s. Post the financial crisis then, he scored as low as -59, and Thatcher in 1990 at the very end of her premiership during the poll tax riots, she was on -56. So listeners may have expected me to say Liz Truss there, but actually Sunak has gone just a bit lower than her now. Her worst score was -51. Admittedly, she might have gone lower if she'd been gone on for longer. And the only other member of the club who's Prime Minister was Brown, who scored -51 as well on the onset of the financial crisis in 2008. And then on the other side, leaders of the opposition in the club, Michael Foot's worst score was -56 from the early 1980s. That's more or less comparable to where Sunak is now. And Corbyn, who's the sole and founding member of the sub-60 club. So you have noted from all of that apart from Thatcher, none of these people went on to win an election. Well, Thatcher didn't go on to, and in fact she was ousted within a year of scoring that low. So if we're thinking about Sunak having an election later this year, potentially, it'd be some trend for him to defy to go on and win. But Keiran, when do you reckon he'd be best placed to try and do that?
2030, but I think there's some logistical issues with that one. No, I think there's obviously an intense debate, particularly on social media and in pundit circles, about when's the best time for the Conservatives to call a general election. And you do see quite a lot of noise around this idea of a May election. And I think the premise really there is that things can only get worse to reverse the old 1997 New Labour scale. Things can only get worse for the Conservatives between now and election day, the longer Rishi Sunak goes. I'm quite vocal and I'm not particularly convinced by this. I think it was odd today to see some of the reaction to our polling with a 27-point Labour lead for people to say, well, this shows exactly why the Conservatives have to go to the country as soon as possible. I mean, other than obviously if you wanted them to lose, I can understand that. But there does seem to be a lot of opinion out there that this is as good as it gets. And I'm not quite sure I would buy that. I mean, if you look in 2019, obviously when the last election was, we had the Liberal Democrats as high as 23 points as late as September. Now that's a sort of second order party compared to the main two. It's very different context. That was in the immediate aftermath of the European elections. We don't have elections like that coming up, for example. But it does show that things can change quite late. We should also acknowledge that our polling is probably on the outside end of the largest scale of Labour lead that's out there. Other polling today puts the lead much narrower. But I think at the moment there is such a barrage of negativity around the government, around Rishi Sunak, that it's very hard to see how he could turn things around in a campaign in May or June. And whilst it's not particularly desirable maybe to go long and to, there's no guarantees that would be any better for the Conservatives, it at least gives them the option to turn things around in a way that it's very unlikely to see in the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So, I think they should, if they want to have a comeback, they should probably go as long as possible. But the only people that can really know, of course, is the people in Downing Street and Rishi Sunak himself.
Yeah, I guess as a counter to that, they might be thinking there are the local elections in early May. If we lose really badly, where are we going to get momentum to come back from then? Is that kind of the writings on the wall then? But admittedly, for our own personal sanity, I hope it's not going to be then.
Yeah, exactly. I've got holiday in April too. But I think the biggest question mark really, or the most persuaded I am by this idea of, it's not an early election now, but an election in the summer, is from Rishi Sunak's perspective about his own future. I was writing plug in the Evening Standard today about how any other leader in normal circumstances with a sort of minus, is it 54 or 53, 54 net satisfaction rating, there would be intense discussions about that leader's future. But obviously the Conservative MPs have to weigh up the fact that this would be the fourth leadership change they'd made in one parliament, completely unprecedented. And at this stage, we're so close to an election, could anyone really turn things around? But he might calculate that actually, the longer things go, the more opportunity there is for people that might want him out, and we know there are some, to try and make a serious go at doing that. So I suppose that's probably one of the most persuasive reasons why he might want to gear up for an election, just to sort of almost head that off. But then there is also the enticing ability to say you were Prime Minister for 2 years and hope something else turns around. We should bring Holly in here, really. Holly, what's your take on some of that and I guess the general lay of the land?
Yeah, I think post-budget's going to be interesting. I was having a bit of a dig actually earlier to see what the kind of post-budget bounces have been on polls in previous years. I think that's something that the Conservative Party will be crossing their fingers for and hoping that some good news comes out of it for some people and it can start to change the tide a little bit. Although with the leads that we're currently polling, it's kind of a small dent. 2015 actually looked like the biggest post-budget bounce, and that was five percentage points. So in the grand scheme of us having a 27-point lead, it's not making a massive dent. They're going to have to hope for quite a lot of other types of bounces that's like throughout the rest of the year. I think they also want the economic optimism across the country to improve. I mean, Sunak's obviously set his stall out on getting inflation down, halving inflation. He'll be wanting that to get to kind of a really low level for people to start to be feeling that in their pockets. I think where he's going to struggle is a lot of the chatter recently has turned into the problems with public services, and we've seen in our issues index a number of public services climbing in our issues index over recent months. The NHS now sitting at the top of that particular tracker. And given we know that Labour are kind of historically stronger on those sorts of issues, and in our political monitor polling, significantly stronger at the moment on issues such as public services in general, levels of public spending, actually even on taxation, which is probably going to worry the Conservative Party. I'm struggling to see where the good news is going to come from to turn around the sorts of consistent polling leads, I think we can say at this point, from our perspective as Ipsos, appreciating that there are differences across the industry. Whenever they call it, really, they're not sitting in a good spot in any of the ways that they historically have led, or in any of the ways that you could see them taking advantage over the next few months, I don't think.
Cameron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very... I don't think Jeremy Hunt's going to be able to pull anything, a rabbit out of the hat big enough to post-budget swing anything. Do look out for us. We'll have some polling out post-budget, so come to us to find out whether he does. But I think it's going to be very hard for them, and I'm inclined to agree with you, Keiran. Hold on and wait towards the end of the year. Events will happen. Maybe something will come up. But we have been saying that for nearly 2 years now. So let's see.
We'd also all appreciate our summer holidays, right? Like, I've got a couple of holidays booked that I'm not kind of planning on a general election falling right into the middle of. So if the government are listening to this, and if they could hold off for as long as possible so I can squeeze in a bit of a tan for the big podcast that we do closer to the time, that would be fab.
We can all do emergency podcasts from our various holiday locations. Each more presumably exotic than the last, but we'll leave it there for this sort of emergency podcast. We'll have a more detailed look back at the budget and what might come out of that in the next sort of week or so. But for now, thank you to Cameron and to Holly, and thank you everyone for listening and watching, and stay tuned for more in the coming weeks.